I get this question asked a lot. How many times should someone be baptized? I have people coming saying, I was baptized as a child or an infant, but I didn't really mean it, or, I wasn't really someone who professed faith at the time. Can I be baptized again? We get that question a lot, and I want to walk us through why we would say no, but actually that baptism actually worked. So Westminster Confession of Faith 28.7 says this: the sacrament of baptism is but once to be administered unto any person. So in our confession, we say really baptism is for one person. Where that comes from is Ephesians 4:05, where Paul says there's only one baptism, one baptism. So is baptism something we do, or is it something God does? That's a really important distinction, because so many people that want to get rebaptized will say, well, I want to make this public declaration now that I've come to faith. It's important for me to have this baptism experience. And I would say, if we believe baptism is a sacrament of what God does, we really don't need to be baptized again, but the baptism that you received, whether it's an infant or a child, actually did work. Great example that I've heard over and over again is this a king in the medieval times, where they would seal a promise or a letter with their wax seal and kind of press that in, and it would be this promise. And what that promise is baptism for you as a child, as an infant, even if you were far away from the Lord, you receive that promise. Someone said that once you are baptized, you are never away from the covenant community. You're just a covenant breaker. Now, one day you can come back to the Lord and actually open that promise. A great illustration I think about in this context is the idea of, imagine when you were a child, when you were an infant, that a family adopted you, and they went through the whole legal procedure of adopting you as their own. And from the court, from the judge, you received this adoption papers, adoption certificate, and it was yours and you're part of that family. But as you grew up, you decided to run away and stray off and saying, I reject this family, I want to go do something else. And then one day maybe you decide, I never had it as good as I was when I was with my family, and decide to return. Well, in that moment, you wouldn't go and repeat the adoption process again, but you actually live into what was already true, live into what was already yours, reclaim what was already rightfully yours as a son or daughter of this family. In the same way, the baptism you received as an infant or child actually worked and brought you into the fullness of that covenant community. So that's why we want to celebrate, but we would honor the baptism that you first had, the one baptism here at Word Church.